take off.
All right. Well, I'm excited to host the leadership series. Today our guest is Toni Boucher. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, so first, I want to know, can you share what you do and what steps did you take to get to this point?
Sure, I'm happy to. When I was very young, I had a high school English teacher that thought I was very shy and that he wanted to have me become stronger and be able to have a stronger voice. So he persuaded me to join the all boys debate team. Back in those days, only the guys were on the debate team. And I was reluctant and frightened, and he really encouraged me. And so I did because it's your English teacher, right? So if he tells you to do it. And so I did, and it was mortifying. I was terrible at it. I stood up and I was embarrassed, but he kept making me stay, and I did, and I got better and better and better and better. And he even encouraged me to go to a national debate seminar and forum that was taking place in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown University. I was only 15 years old, so it was huge. And it gave me that love of Washington, D.C. and of the political arena. And so in high school, they encouraged me to run for student government. And back in those days, girls did not run for president of your class. Guess what you ran for? Secretary. So I won, but it started off that we each had homeroom representatives to our government, our student government. So I was a home representative. Then I became secretary of my class. And then I went off to college and I thought, oh, I'm going to take, political science. And I did. And I was now in a city with very, very affluent students that came from backgrounds unlike mine. I came from Italy when I was only 5 years old. My father had a third grade education, and my mother never went to school at all. She could not read or write or drive a car. And nobody read a book because we were very, very, very poor. In fact, I just wrote a book about it. It's called The Stone Doll, a memoir from war-torn Italy to the American Dream. And I wrote a book in March that came out on Amazon called The Husky Effect, which is how the University of Connecticut is creating entrepreneurs of the future. So it gives you a little sidelight into how far I came and where I am today. So when I was in college, because I was from a poor family and I saw these very wealthy people, I saw very clearly that, well, running for a political office is for the wealthy and well connected. So I should just forget about it. And I was really, really good at foreign languages. So I became a foreign language teacher for high schools. But when I graduated, I quickly was recruited to work for a very large corporation as an executive trainee. And I started rising through the ranks of very big leadership positions as a woman back in the day when women didn't do that. So I was breaking some glass ceilings. I was very excited about that. But something happened. I got married and I started having children. And wow, was that a change? Because it made it hard for me to travel on business, to do and juggle all of these things together. So I went back to graduate school and got my MBA at UConn. And I still then was very involved. And in Wilton, someone called me up and said, I was fairly young. My children were just 5 years old, 8 years old. They were very, very young in kindergarten. And so they said, would you like to run for the school board of Wilton? And I said, well, what is the school board? What does it do? I didn't even know that. And I wasn't a registered Republican or Democrat. I was unaffiliated. In fact, when I was in college in Washington, D.C., we marched, for civil rights. We marched for women's rights. We marched for the women's right to choose. And so I wasn't affiliated with a political party. I wasn't really identifying, with one. But there was only one position opened. And so I said, okay, for education, I'll run. It was very competitive. I had opposition, but I won. And I served on the Wilton Board of Education for 8 years and was its chairman. Then, when my term was over, they asked if I'd like to serve on the Board of Selectmen, never imagining that I would be First Selectman one day. I was on the Board of Selectmen. There are 5 members. And I said, okay, because on the school board, we just were concerned about all of the school children, school buildings, school policy. But on the Board of Selectmen, it's all the other part of town government. It is the police, it's the fire, it's social services, it is parks and recreation in all your fields. It is about the building department, your registrar of voters, your town clerk, who gives out marriage licenses and dog licenses and building permits and all other things that happen in our town. Um, so it was very interesting, eye-opening. So you got a 360-degree view of the entire town. How does it work? That's what inspired me when I finally got to this position to include high school students from Wilton High School as interns here at Town Hall. And one year I had 6 of them. And many of them got into their schools of their choice. We even had students that lived in Wilton but went to a private school and they wanted to do it as well. And this year we have a few. In fact, there was one here today and he does Wednesdays and Thursdays. And so we've been very lucky for them to see how a town works. But once I was on the Board of Selectmen, a governor said, we have a position that I can appoint on the State Board of Education. And I thought, oh my goodness, how exciting is that? Imagine being in the governance of 500,000 school children in Connecticut, not just Wilton, not our school children here, but the entire state of Connecticut. And when they were interviewing me, they said, well, how can a very wealthy woman from Wilton understand the plight of the poor intercity child? Because Wilton is affluent and you've got New Haven and Hartford and Bridgeport. And I smiled and I said, well, you won't believe this, but I was once one of those children. I was very poor. We lived in a tenement building. I didn't even have 5 cents that children paid for graham crackers and milk at recess time. And so that's how poor. And when I was a little girl, the name of my book that's coming out in November is called A Stone Doll, a memoir from war-torn Italy to the American dream. And that's because you'll see a picture of myself at 3 years old holding and cradling a stone that's wrapped in a cloth. And that's what you pretended to play with because you had no toys. So it's when they heard that, they said, oh my goodness, of course you would understand. So it gave them a different view of people that live in Wilton. There can be some that are very wealthy. They've gone to private school. They've gone to some of the most elite colleges in the world, in America. And yet there are others like me that started at the very bottom and worked their way to the top. And that is because my father always said, education is everything. It is the way out of poverty. It is the path to freedom. And I say that all the time because for me, that's my number one. And I was so excited about serving on the State Board of Education in Hartford. Well, guess what else happened? A few years later, a gentleman that was a state representative in the General Assembly of Hartford passed away. And they knocked on my door again and said, Toni, would you run for being a state representative? It would be for Wilton and New Canaan. And I said, well, I now have a full-time job. I'm raising 3 children. I'm working all the time. They said, oh, it won't take too much time. Of course, that's not the case. It always takes too much time. But they said, but guess what? You always complain about bilingual education, and you can't change the laws because they're made in the General Assembly, just like Congress. A governor and a president can propose something, but guess who makes all the decisions? Congress, your congressman, or your state senator and your state representative. So they got me. They said, if you run and win, we'll put you on the education committee and you can actually write the laws that you're very worried about. And guess what? I ran and I won and I served for 12 years in the House. And then when someone retired from the state Senate, not just 2 towns, but 7 all around Fairfield County, they asked me to run for that too. So I ran. It was very hard. And I won, and I served 10 years there. And my last crowning achievement was I helped to pass a lot of bills. Orem's Diner is a diner I saved. Route 7 is something I widened from 2 lanes to 4 and put in sidewalks. The Norwalk River Valley Trail, I helped to make that happen by a state law. So I did a lot of exciting things, but the most rewarding was passing the bill that required teaching the Holocaust education and genocide bill to every high school student in Connecticut. And I was very, very proud of that, very proud. So I thought, okay, I've done 17 campaigns. I've won 15. That's a pretty good record. It's time to retire. So I retired for 5 months And then someone came to me again and said, Toni, we need you right now. Wilton needs a first selectman, and no one's stepping up. So a year and 3/4 ago, I ran for this seat and I won. And now I'm working at Town Hall, helping the town for its budgets to provide funding for its police and fire and social services and the Parks and Recreation Department. For our building, we're building a new police station. We're helping to support Ambler Farm and fixing some of their buildings, which I'm really excited. I personally support Trackside Teen Center very, very much. And we support the library with $3 million a year. I also am very involved with the YMCA in town and the Historical Society. So even though I'm mature and older than anyone in town hall, I'm still, working at something that I'm passionate about and I love. And I feel like right now, like I'm a mother to the whole town. You feel very protective and supportive, and I work with wonderful people that work really, really hard. So that's my story, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has on this phone call.
All right. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I was wondering, what do you think the biggest challenges have been, or what do you think has been the biggest challenge you faced through your many careers?
Oh my goodness, you know what it is? It's balancing your life, giving your family and your children the attention and the love and the support they deserve while still balancing all the demands you have on your public service life. Many people don't understand that when you are in a public position like this, it's one thing. I'm in the private sector too because I worked in an investment firm for 22 years too. And when you work in the private sector, your private life stays private. But when you're in a public office, if something happens and your children do something that may not be appropriate, it's all over the papers. Or if they're in class and their teacher is involved with union negotiations, there's pressure on them. Or sometimes you have to be somewhere to vote and the family needs you to do something else. And it's an important time in their life. There's graduations, there's weddings, there's births, and it's someone gets sick and you're always torn between the two. And that's been my biggest challenge in public life. Some people would say, oh, those nasty campaigns, and people say bad things about you, and you have to campaign. Yes, that's very, very hard. But if you're tough enough, you learn how to manage that. But it's also what pulls at your heartstrings is giving your children and your family the time they deserve that you love. And so that's always been my challenge for me personally.
Well, that's a definitely a hard challenge to face. Knowing that that's your challenge, do you have an accomplishment that you think overrules all of the challenges you faced? So what's your biggest accomplishment?
Oh my gosh, my biggest accomplishment. Well, first, I always have to say my biggest accomplishment is my 3 children. I'm so proud of them. I think that's the most important thing that I find that I've done in my life is to create, a legacy behind me of productive, um, you know, citizens out in the world. After that, then you look at some of the things you've done. And I've done a lot of things in the private sector that I'm proud of, but I'm particularly proud of some of the legislation that I have helped personally to push through. One of my first bills was to make sure that you start school when you're 5 years old and not 7. That's a bill I wrote because many inner city kids don't start school until they're 7 and they're 2 years behind. I also was involved in providing preschool education for underprivileged children that didn't have the money for preschool. So they would be behind all of the other children that families had enough money to put them in a nice preschool program. So if they don't have that, they're behind all the time. They're always catching up because that was me. It took me 4 years in the back of a classroom from kindergarten to 4th grade to learn English and to be able to speak and read. And so I know what it's like not to have those advantages. I also helped to write a bill that created the 529 plan, which is the savings account for college that people can fund. Let's see, the Holocaust education bill is the one that I really am proud of because I want anti-Semitism to be reduced. I want people to understand each other. I want people to tolerate each other. I also voted for the first ever gay marriage bill in Connecticut. I'm pro-choice for women. I voted on that. Oh, and I also helped to write the nation's strongest gun regulations and control bill after Sandy Hook. I was one of the 6 people three on one side of the aisle, three on the others, that actually wrote that huge bill that now I'm very proud of. It was hard. I was challenged afterwards because some people were angry that we regulated guns to the extent that we did. But I survived, and in fact, I probably got the most votes I ever have after that bill was passed. So some of those are some of the accomplishments, and I'm very proud of the Norwalk River Valley Trail that I really helped to create as well. So that those are some of the many things I'm proud of.
Well, those are a lot of great accomplishments. Does anybody on the call have any more questions before I ask my final question? All right. Well, my final question is, what advice do you have for anybody who wants to enter your field?
Well, the first advice I would say is know yourself. When I say that, I mean know what makes you happy. Politics is something for people that love to be around people, that you love them so much that you'll tolerate a lot of criticism, a lot of complaining, a lot of negativity, but yet you love meeting with people, supporting people, liking to solve people's problems. That's very important. Also, to not be afraid and know that you can fail, and I've won a lot of races, but I've also failed and lost a lot of races too. And they were very, very public. And even one got into the Washington Post in DC. So you can't, and I tell my interns when they were working with me, I said, don't be afraid of failing. You pick yourself up, you shake yourself off, and you keep on going. You keep believing in yourself. Don't give up. Don't give up. Persevere, because it's too easy to walk away and say, oh, they make me feel bad. They're saying terrible things about me. I don't like it. You know what? Hold your head up, keep moving forward, and don't let people knock you down. You pick yourself up. Just know people are always going to criticize you. People, it's so easy for them to say you can't do it, or they'll say no, or oh, they think that you're not good enough, or that you're not smart enough, you're not tough enough. You know, forget all of that. Know yourself, believe in yourself, keep on going when other people don't. And I wrote a book about it, and you'll have to read it. It's called The Husky Effect. And it talks about how my husband like started 20 new startup companies, and every single one failed until everybody kind of gave up on him, didn't believe in him, and he wouldn't give up. And guess what? His very last venture, it succeeded spectacularly, and he was close to giving up, almost even he, like within a couple of months, and something extraordinarily happened, and it was this big business miracle. And miracles do happen. And so again, believe in yourself even when people criticize you and they don't believe in you. Just stay strong. As women, we have to counter a lot of negativity, and that's hard, but just use that as a way to make you stronger. And I get criticized a lot, and I also get tremendous amount of affection and support by everyone. It's so easy to remember that negativity or that insult or that criticism. And you almost forget the hundreds of positivity that one person will make you feel so bad. You've got to shake it off. You've heard that story and that song, right? Just shake it off, believe in yourself, keep persevering, don't give up, and work hard. It isn't easy. It's really hard sometimes. I could not write. And my sixth grade teacher made me write again and again till I cried. And guess what? I wrote two books, and I write all the time, and I give speeches. In fact, I'm going to go give a speech tonight in another 45 minutes. And now I can just get up in front of people and I can speak to 1,000 people and not be afraid. And that's another thing. If you want to be in the public arena, make yourself get up in front and be able to speak, and don't be afraid, even when you feel that it's uncomfortable. Believe it or not, when you get up to speak, most people in that audience want you to succeed. And so I think it's really important, particularly as young women, we have to really believe in ourselves and support each other. It's easy to criticize. It's much harder to stick it out.
Well, thank you so much for the great advice. I'll have to be sure to read your book.
Oh, I hope you do. The Husky Effect is already on Amazon. It came out in March, and my Stone Doll, a memoir, is coming out at the end of November. There's going to be a book talk at the Wilton Library and at the Canaan Library on it. And so just look me up and call me anytime. Happy to speak with any of you if you want advice on how to start running for office. You that's the one job in the world that there is no age limit. Think about it. You can be 18 years old and 100. We've had 99-year-old states, U.S. senators, and I know a young man that 18 in West Virginia that became a state representative. And I worked with a state senator that was only 23. So it's one of those jobs where you can have great longevity, but it is a lot of work. It's more work than people think. And you have to find great reward internally about it because most times it doesn't make you a lot of money, gives you a lot of grief, and it's very challenging. But yet, when you have a big win and you can make a law that helps thousands of people, it's incredibly rewarding. And remember, it's the rarest opportunity to be involved in a government position where you actually can affect a change. And it happens to very few people, but it does happen. And if it can happen to a person like me that came from a farm with nothing and played with a stone doll as a toy as a kid, it can happen to any of you.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for the invitation. Great to see you all here on Zoom and hope to see you in town. And by the way, come and visit me at Town Hall because inside those big white pillars that you see on Route 7, if you walk into the lobby, I have an incredible display of a replica of a silk gown worn by Queen Charlotte, King George's wife, that was made in 1761, but it was just sewn as a replica and it has a tea set and flowers around it and a big sign that explains the whole story. So come on into town hall.
All right, I'll be sure to come see it.
Hey,